We're on.
Good job.
Thanks. Good evening and welcome to the Personnel Administration Affairs Committee. I'm the chairman, June Karen. I'd like to do roll call. Alderman at large Kelly. Alderman at large Wilshire.
Here.
Alderman Lopez.
Here.
Alderman Gedge.
Yeah.
Everyone's here, and we started the meeting at 7 p.m. Okay, first order of, also in attendance is President McCarthy. And first order of business is to elect a committee clerk. Do I have any nominations?
I'd like to nominate Lori Wilshire.
Okay, Alderman Kelly nominates Alderman Wilshire. Any others? Like to close nominations? Alderman?
I'd like to move to close
Okay.
nominations.
All right. So Alderman Kelly closes nominations. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. And take a nomination for Alderman Wilshire as clerk. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. I'm honored.
Okay. So do we have anyone here for public comment? Seeing none? Okay. So we will start with interviews. Mayor, do you have some people here that you would like to bring up?
Dan Hansberry, who's the nominee for the Board of Assessors.
Certainly, Mayor. So Daniel C. Hansberry is being appointed to the Board of Assessors.
So thank you, Madam Chair.
You're
It's
welcome.
nice to come before you in the first time that the new committee, the new Personnel Committee has met.
Thank you.
So now, so we have here Dan Hansberry, who I've nominated to the Board of Assessors. Dan is probably well-known to everyone. He served in the legislature for quite a while. He was a teacher in the city for many years at the high school. He's been a licensed real estate person and he's served on the Board of Education for how many terms?
3 terms.
3 terms, and is known very well to people throughout the community. He's had an interest for quite some time in being on the Board of Assessors, which, of course, oversees the activities of the full-time professional chief assessor and the other employees of the assessing department. And I'm sure he will do a very good job for the city. And with that, I will just turn the meeting over to you, Madam Chair, and see if you have any questions for Mr. Hansberry.
Thank you. Mr. Hansberry, thank you for willing to volunteer to be part of the community's committees. Would you like to respond and give us some information to our committee members?
Well, I have a strong commitment to public service. I was on the school board, as the mayor said, for 3 terms in the legislature from 2012 to 2016. I didn't run for re-election because my wife retired in 16 and we wanted to have some freedom to do some traveling without the legislative calendar hanging over our head. But after having a break, I feel the call to public service once again, so I'd like to give up my time to the community.
Thank you. Any committee members have any questions of Mr. Hansberry?
Can I make
Alderman Gedge?
have you, politically, if I asked you a question, you would know the answer of almost anything I would ask you?
I don't know.
Yes. I served with this gentleman in Concord. Let me tell you, he's one of the smartest individuals, and please, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Alderman Wilshire.
I'd like to thank you for stepping forward, too. I know that I was here when you served on the Board of Education, and I know that you did a very good job. Always did your homework and well represented the Board of Ed. So thank you for that, and thank you for coming forward for this position.
Well, thank you very much.
Anyone else? Okay. Oh, Alderman Lopez.
I wanted to comment that I don't know you personally, but your resume is very impressive. I can see you have a lot of experience, both in the municipal and even, you know, you said you have the call for public service. I see you work with your church, and you still keep busy. So I think he's a great candidate, and I'm looking forward to him helping out the city.
Thank you very much.
Alderman Kelly.
This is just a curiosity. I was wondering what about the Board of Assessors was interesting to you, because I know the mayor said that you've wanted to do it for a while.
Well, I didn't hold a real estate license back in the late 80s, early 90s, and so I've always had that interest. I did it on a part-time basis, and the timing wasn't the best. It was when the bottom had fallen out of the real estate market in New Hampshire. But I did have the experience of selling homes, listing homes, and I've just continued to maintain that interest in real estate.
And I would like to thank you for your service as well.
Well, thank you very much.
Anything else? Okay, Mr. Hansberry will make our motions at the end of the meeting, so we thank you for contributing to the community again, so thank you.
Very much.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming.
Now, Madam Chair, I'd like to invite up Jill Gage and Michael Buckley, who I have nominated to be on the Downtown Improvements Committee.
Certainly.
Madam Chair, I'm sure you will remember that we decided to, through a vote of the Board of Aldermen in the last term, decided to expand the number of members on the Downtown Improvement Committee by 2 full members and 2 alternates. The point of that was to get more people from downtown involved in the Downtown Improvement Committee, which now has been functioning for the last 4 or 5 years. I think both nominees will also be well known to you. Jill Gage is, of course, of Fort and Gage, where she's worked for a long, long time. She's very active in the community through the Rotary. Has been involved in one of Nashua's premier downtown businesses, family businesses, for a long time. The business itself has been going on. Has it been always on Pearl Street? Since 1931, and now they have made an arrangement with Collins Flowers to help take over some of their old business now that Collins is closing. I know that Jill will be a great addition to the Downtown Improvement Committee, has a lot of insight into everything that's going on downtown and various measures we could undertake to strengthen business for downtown business owners. And for the community at large. And of course, Michael Buckley, you also, I'm sure, or at least if you don't know him, you're aware of him. Michael has been operating what are now the 2 downtown restaurants, Surf and MT's, for the last 20 years or so. Almost 23, yep. Almost 23 years. And also is operating the bakery and restaurant up in Merrimack, as well as Surf in Portsmouth. And he has been a stalwart for downtown, providing great food and a great entertainment for many Nashua people for the last 23 years. So I think he is a great addition to the Downtown Improvement Committee, and will also give the insight of a restaurant owner. There are no other restaurant owners on the Downtown Improvement Committee at the current time. And I think that's something that will be a great addition to their dialogue and to the committee's activities. So maybe I will ask each of you just to give a brief little statement to the committee, and then open it to questions.
Who would you like to go first?
Why don't we start to my right, Jill?
All right.
Excuse me, could you bring your mics a little closer to you, because they need to hear you in order for
There's a big
translation?
Bible in front of me. Am I
Yes,
supposed to
well,
read it?
that's your
No, that's what city
assignment.
ordinance is.
That's your
I
assignment.
have to read this in 5 minutes.
Me, if you don't do
Well,
that.
I read it, and I agree with I love downtown.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm originally from New York, not from New Hampshire or Nashua, but I've been in Nashua since 1992, and I fell in love with it. And being in the Gage family for that long, it's just a wonderful city, and I'd love to see it go further. And I watched Michael bring on MT's, or Michael Timothy's at the time, and then Surf, and he's a wonderful man for the community. And I just love Nashua, and I want to see it going forward. And I will say, the first year that Jody and I did Pedal It Forward, with flowers. The mayor walked around with me for 3 hours or so in September, and we gave away 200 bouquets of flowers. And it just made me more of the community. I even went into Michael's restaurants. I said, Michael, I'm saving the last 6 bouquets for Surf and MTs because I just love the community and the camaraderie. And I'm a cheerleader for Nashua. Not that I've ever been a cheerleader in my life, but I'll put pom-poms on if I have to.
Thank you. Mr. Buckley?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm sure everybody's familiar with the 2 restaurants we run downtown, especially the people in this room. You know, I've always been an advocate for giving back to the community, so when the mayor asked me if I'd like to help, I said absolutely I could do that. I've served on a few boards in the past. I'm not serving on one currently, so I don't mind taking this opportunity to step up and help people advocate whatever it is we're working on at the time. I know there's several initiatives being dealt with at this moment, strong ones. You know, it's not that hard to give a little bit of your time back to the community that's made you successful, and I don't mind doing it. I hope I can be a reasonable voice and an opinion that maybe adds a different angle or helps get to the truth or to get to what makes something successful. And you know, restaurants, I think, are going to be a main driver for the downtown, to be honest with you. You know, you have to look at where the downtown's heading, and it looks like it's residential and lifestyle, you know, restaurant. And if they can shore up the downtown, then some of the retail can fill in. You know, I think, you know, there's certain things that are going to happen for it to be successful. I think we've come a long way. I like what the downtown's doing, but I'm happy to help shape it further. I don't know everything they're working on, so I'll be interested to find out. I think the biggest contribution I can make beyond that is just running good businesses. I've always said that. You know, if the people that run businesses downtown are professional and care and, you know, want to do a good job, that's the biggest thing they can first contribute, because that's what brings people down. So, you know, I hope you consider me on the board, and looking forward to it.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your willingness, both of you, to serve on these committees. Do we have any questions? Alderman Wilshire.
First, I'd like to thank the mayor for bringing these 2 wonderful people onto this committee. I am very impressed that both of them are willing to serve, very happy that they're willing to serve, and I have the most respect and admiration for both of these candidates. So thank you. I thank you both.
Thank you, Lori. Yep.
Thank you. Anyone else? Alderman Lopez.
Well, as an observation, over the years working downtown, I've found both Fort Gage and Michael Timothy's to have a reputation for treating their employees very well. They're both a sought-after place of employment because of that. So I want to congratulate both of you on that, particularly, just in case you weren't aware of it. But additionally, I think both are uniquely positioned as leaders in their part of the community, in that Fort Gage has operated successfully on a street that is doing very well right now, but hasn't always been. And I think a lot of people just take it for granted that Fort Gage is sitting right there. You can always go in and check, you know, see if there's any new T-shirts or bags or flowers, or it's become a hallmark, same as Michael Timothy's. My question is, I guess, 2 parts. Number one, what can you do, Mr. Buckley, to help organize and represent restaurants on the Downtown Improvement Committee? And then to both of you, what can you do to make downtown accessible to people living east and west of downtown instead of just north and south?
Well, as far as bringing the community together, I'd be interested in finding out what the committee is looking for in that regard, so I know what the task really is. You know, I think we already do some of that. I don't personally do it. I think that some of the people running the different events try to do that. Not always successfully, to be honest with you, because not everybody wants to get involved. So, you know, if they need somebody that can speak the same language as the rest of the restaurateurs, all the other restaurateurs, that's maybe where I can come in, because I know that there are times where they're trying to do events and get everybody involved, and they get about half the people involved. And, you know, I think sometimes it's just a failure to actually go face to face and inspire somebody to be involved. You know, if you just send them an email, or, you know, you send word, and I'm not saying they don't try, but I'm saying if you get face to face and explain in the same language, and I think all us restaurant people understand, you know, the same language of what we're asked of, you know, for donations versus time versus the whole thing. There are obviously certain events throughout the year that everybody should get involved with, and I'm sure there'll be more to come along down the road. So I'm happy to take that leadership role if that's what they want from me. I don't know if that's what they want, but if it is, I certainly can do that. And then as far as people coming from the east and west, well, you know, I think the west part is somewhat solved with the Broad Street, right, Parkway. I still believe we need a way of ending that Parkway properly. It's still not quite correct. You know, it really does dead end right, and you know, there at the corner where the Saigon Market used to be, but that could be fixed with some work. I've always thought that, you know, Mayor Lozo was always one to repeat some of the stuff I brought forward way back from the Master Plan Committee of 2000 and several times since then, as to some of the things that you'd have to take a left there and get into the downtown somewhere. I know it's already there, but there's no direct route. So I think that's one thing. As far as, you know, from the east, it's actually some of the same stuff, because if you brought the Parkway straight across Main Street and up East Pearl and over, you know, it would also connect to where the bridge crosses the river there into Hudson. You know, those are a couple of things that were addressed in the past. You know, I think they were just happy to get what they got done with the Parkway at this point, and believe me, I'm happy about it. And I see people using it. I hope it's, you know, living up to expectations. But I think it does kind of, if you don't live in this town, it's a very tricky thing to understand. You know, I think that we understand it because we travel every day. But if you're coming from Exit 6 and you're not from Nashua or from the surrounding communities, then you get down to the mills and you go, well, now where do I go? And I know it's just a little confusing. So I think there's still some work to be done there personally. And I don't know what it takes to get there, but, you know, that's what I think.
Alderman Lopez.
I couldn't agree more that Parkway particularly needs an anchor that just says, welcome, you made it to downtown, so people don't just shoot right past it into the neighborhoods and figured they took a wrong turn. But what I was specifically considering in my mind in terms of east and west are people who live east and west of downtown and are immediate residents. I've had a lot of constituent feedback over the years that people living on either side feel like Main Street was designed north and west. Parking is a major issue. Traffic is where most of the consideration is given. And so my question was, how do you engage people who might be living 2 or 3 blocks over in order to support the downtown additionally? And then when I was considering leadership of issues, I had an experience towards the end of the summer last year where a number of restaurants approached me and said they would like the opportunity or the option to allow pets in their dogs specifically in their outdoor dining areas. And we brought it before the Public Health Board. The Public Health Board ultimately concluded that they were not able to voice an objection to it, but they had absolutely no incentive to actually propose the change in the first place. So they had the discussion, they did the research, and then no one was interested in making a motion to approve it or enact any kind of mechanism for restaurant owners to manage that part because it just wasn't their role. So that got me thinking that if there are issues that the restaurants owners have that they share in common, who speaks for them and who pushes forward what they're looking for, who organizes them and who makes sure that they know when certain meetings are happening. And I think that's something that Downtown Improvement Committee could at least do for the restaurants and businesses downtown in terms of saying, well, this is happening and this would help the businesses
I
downtown.
agree, because you know, something half the time they don't know what's going on. To be honest with you, you know, it's a fine point. I'd be happy to take that role if that's what needs to happen.
So I'll bring into the east and west. I mean, I do agree with Michael too on the Broad Street Parkway. It does come, it's like, okay, where do I go now? They're all one-way streets. How do I get from A to B to C to D? And that might be something in the works, which I think will benefit Nashua if they do make east and west Pearl Street two-way or something to get everybody in and out. As far as the people coming in from the east and west 3 blocks away, they can walk to downtown. There's no parking issue. There's no problem for them to come to the downtowns, to come to the restaurants, to come to the shops. But if you look 3 blocks away from either side, if we have like the, what is the place? The apartment complex, Clock Tower. Those people come in, they're right there. If we had more places like that where people are going to be spending enough for rent to come into downtown, I think that'd be great. I think if you're trying to get, certain people 3 blocks away that can't afford to come downtown, there's really not a lot that we can do unless we get lower end places in town for them to come to. And I'm not saying that in a negative way. I'm just saying in reality, we have all these new buildings and apartments growing up down on Franklin Street and then down by the river. Those people are welcome to come downtown, and it's walking distance to them. It's not a parking issue. So to get them to come 3 blocks away.
Alderman Lopez.
The lower end stores was an interesting comment, but I was thinking more in terms of outreach to let them know what's available downtown. Specifically, if you have a building like Clock Tower, there's a lot of people who might benefit from even knowing what's downtown, having a guide, that kind of thing.
Oh, that's a good idea. That's a great idea, actually. And how do we go about that? We create a map or something and let people know. We put it in the buildings. We put it in the apartment complexes. Yeah, that's an option, but it's so walkable.
I think
3
that's
blocks
the kind
away.
of thing that the committee would discuss
Yeah.
because, I gotta be honest with you, that's the kind of thing that most businesses are getting away from. Printed guides and things, they're becoming more and more a thing of the past. If anything, you find a way of tagging along in social media somehow to spread the word better online, because most of the guides I've been in the past, I'm not in anymore.
Because of those social media.
Because that's where everybody uses, there's a demographic of, older generations that maybe don't use it as much, but most everybody, these days, I hate to say it, but most everybody from the 60s down does use social media or their phone, their device, some way. And I think that's where you want to put your money, because you're going to get your most bang for your buck. And I think those are the kind of issues that, once you get in a committee setting and there's dialogue, and that's where I can at least provide my perspective on these things. 'Cause I've been down this road now for 23 years of where to spend your money and what's effective and how do you reach people. And I can tell you very clearly how we've kind of slimmed ours down. We are just actually removing ourselves from a in-room bulletin in the hotels, just because I never see any return from those anymore. I'm better off reaching out in some kind of other format, and I've actually hired in the last couple of years a full-time media person that does just online media and some other things too for us. She helps us design stuff, but I mean, that's where all my money's going, because that's what's effective. So I think that's the kind of stuff that in a committee format you can shake out. You don't want to spend a lot of time and money on something that doesn't yield dividends. But I'm sure everybody at Clock Tower, has
Something
a
on their
smartphone that if there's a way of connecting to either some type of the Great American Down South, which they already do, but you have specific, things that pop up that relate to them about things that are going on, or a new restaurant that's opening or whatever it is, so they know what's going on downtown. I think that's what the kind of stuff that, at least I know that's the kind of perspective I can help bring to the table, because that's what we do.
You know, I'll follow up with that. We were at Rotary today, and the speaker at Rotary was talking about getting anybody involved in your organization, your job, your community, whatever, social media, from the receptionist to the CEO, getting everybody to like your Facebook page, getting everybody to like what's going on downtown. And I'm a big proponent of that at my store, and I know you are. I was shocked. I went to Surf Portsmouth 2 weeks ago, and I checked in, and all of a sudden I got a message back. Welcome, Jill, to Surf Portsmouth. I'm like, who knows I'm here? And it was your social media.
Yeah,
So I think that, Tom, would be a great way for us to
yeah. I mean,
to help get people involved, to know what's going on.
Yeah.
Because that's the new way of going on. That's a great question.
Thanks for your answers.
Well, thank you for the question.
Alderman Gidge, you had your hand up?
Yes, I'm glad to see, Mr. Mayor, that you brought in two people who are not shy. They will speak their minds. You both are very competitive, been in business, especially flowers. I mean, this is very difficult. Restaurants, if you're successful with one, you're a success. But, and I know you have to study and you have to look around and you have to see what's going on, what's new and throughout the country, I'm sure, restaurants. Have you seen anything in your wanderings that Nashua could use for like an activity that we don't have?
Well,
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
the duck race from Rotary. I'm joking. They're going to do a duck race on.
I think we do some pretty good activities right now.
Yeah, I
I mean,
think
that's
we do.
something I could think about, and, I mean, we have added the Beer and Bacon Festival in the last few years, which I think was a really good thing. Are you talking about events, or are you talking about something else?
Anything
Like
that
a
brings
amenity.
people downtown.
Well, I think the farm to table dinner was phenomenal last year,
Yeah, that's been good.
and that's been great. I truly think that Great American Downtown has some great events, and they bring people in, and I think there are places that we can expand. But I think as working on a committee like this, we can work together to figure out, okay, we've got the bacon and beer thing, we've got the holiday stroll, we've got the Taste of Downtown, let's see what the next thing. Concert series,
Yeah, they have tried that. I think
Yeah.
there's room for that to grow.
yeah, the
But
concert
even
series could
finishing,
grow.
like, don't we have plans to finish the Riverwalk completely at some point?
Yeah, do we?
The city has developed a riverfront master plan, which was completed last year and adopted by the Board of Aldermen. So the next step is to move forward in undertaking to make those improvements. It's quite extensive,
I
but
think that's the kind of signature
Yeah.
stuff that you gotta keep the momentum behind and keep pushing to get it finally done, because that's the big stuff that makes a difference,
Right.
I think.
Yes.
Something like that, to finally tie that whole thing together from what they've started with and to where you wanna be. That's the kind of thing that you ought to get more people excited about and behind, and understanding what the plan is. And, I think that the committee can be part of that too, because, it's those big,
Thank you very much.
those big optical things that you want to complete.
Alderwoman Kelly.
So I think that the two of you have tremendous experience between you, and having those businesses in downtown. I'm there all the time. Know you guys pretty well. I had a couple of questions around the newcomers. There was a lot of talk about a lot of new restaurants that are coming to downtown, and I'd just love to know how we can kind of bring them in. What do you think we're going to do to make sure that their feedback is included in the committee and kind of the idea for downtown going forward?
You talking about some of the newer bars and stuff that have already done
I
there?
think Paul listed maybe 20 new restaurants. Oh, there's a ton. There's a ton. There's a couple of new breweries coming. There's a catering company. So I just think that you guys have great experience, and we also want to make sure that those newer entrepreneurs stay.
Well, I'll say from my aspect, we're going to definitely welcome them and encourage them to get involved in downtown, because if you're going to be a man on your own island, you're not going to make it.
Yep.
So they need to embrace the community of downtown and say, hey, Michael's here for me, Jill's here for me. If I needed anything, I can go to Michael and say, Michael. And Michael would jump right in and cook on his line if he had to. I know you would. I've seen you do that before. And if somebody needed help from me, I'd be like, whatever you want, let me introduce you to the key people. Let's get you involved in the downtown. You want to make everybody that, you want to welcome people into your place and you want to become part of Nashua. You don't want to be sitting on your own island. That would be my shy thing.
I think it's great more restaurants are coming.
Yeah,
I haven't
competition
heard
is
this,
great.
So, I mean, I'm busy running my restaurant, so I don't always get to know all the details of the new news, but if there's a couple things coming downtown, I think that's kind of the key to the success of the downtown is, I think it's going to continue to grow as a destination for things like that, the Performing Arts Center, if it happens, more restaurants, more upscale living for people. I know there's different price tags in there, but I would be happy to engage any of the new people too, just the way I would the people that we have now. I hope they do come, and it's really going to be up to them to do a great job, get support, but do a great job, and make it through their own merits, and become part of. They have to want to get involved too. I've been involved in downtown events and things since we got here in '95, so I'll certainly advocate to get them involved, but they have to want to do that at the same time. We have people that have been here for a long time that don't really try to get involved sometimes, so it's not always easy, but it does take somebody, I think, that's in the same business that can speak to them.
Michael, I think I'm especially interested in how many different downtowns that you have businesses in and how that experience can help us, right? So you've got Portsmouth and you've got Merrimack and you've got
Yeah.
Nashua. So, I mean,
It's soon to be Hollis. We bought a building in Hollis.
great to hear. I'll be there.
Yeah, we're doing another bakery over there too. So yeah, we fit into a lot of different things. Well, Portsmouth, they just got the water. So I mean, they don't even have to try.
This is true. This is true.
That's true.
You know what I mean?
That's true.
Yeah, they have a beautiful waterfront, small city that has very nice historical architecture, and it's quite quaint. And it wasn't always a destination because, I've lived in New Hampshire my whole life, and I know that back in the 70s and 60s, it wasn't the most desirable place to be in Portsmouth, even though I didn't go there then. But they kind of have, what they have, so they don't have to try. It comes to them. As far as Merrimack, we forged ahead in Merrimack. We saw opportunities here in Nashua when it was slightly depressed. I guess you could say that. That was the opportunity for me as a young chef owner, that I could say I can afford to be here because the prices are right now, and I see that the potential's here. I wanted to do an urban bistro, which something right in town, be part of the community, and we went in and just threw everything we had at it, and it worked for us, and we're very fortunate and lucky, and it was a lot of hard work, but in Merrimack was almost the same thing, to be honest with you. Merrimack is a nice town, but it wasn't like there was lots of stuff going on there. And the restaurant that was there before us was not doing well, and honestly, it was in disrepair. So once again, we just took a gamble and went in, and I'd be happy to talk to any young chef owners or people that are just starting out. That's the people I can certainly advise the best. I think if people come in with their already nailed down concepts, and they come in with money behind them, their chances of survival are probably pretty good most of the time, although it didn't work out for the Portland Pie people. But, I think I could certainly be a great sounding board for young entrepreneurs that maybe are just starting out, especially because I understand that dynamic really well, and I can tell them exactly what it takes, 100%. So I'd be happy to, once again, be that person, but, just point me in the right direction and I'll do it.
Anyone else? Well, we see that you're very not enthusiastic about this, but we thank you both. I know you are. We will take up your appointment at the end of the meeting, so if you'd like to wait and find out and see where,
Should get up and sit down?
yes, you need to, unless you want to bang the gravel. Thank you. Thank you for all your information.
And thank you for thinking of us.
Thank you. So, Mayor, is
And now
William
would I
Dubois?
invite up, looking at the list, Mr. Dubois cannot come. Something developed for him tonight. This is on the Hunt Memorial.
So we'll
You know
hold
Tim
that.
Cummings, so I don't think you wanted to see him. So next we have the Mine Falls Park Advisory
I am
Committee,
always excited to see Director Cummings.
Yes,
well,
me too.
who is, why doesn't Stacy,
Okay.
Ms. Vigno come up
Shade
here?
from the clerk.
Thank you.
So I've nominated Ms. Vigno for the Mine Falls Park Advisory Committee.
Okay.
She lives near Mine Falls Park, just off Broad Street, spends a lot of time in the park, and has been very interested in being on the advisory committee. As you know, the advisory committee considers what's going on in the park, recommends to the city that some things be done or not be done. For example, the boardwalk that was constructed around the mill pond after there was quite a bit of erosion was one of their ideas that they brought forward and which we ultimately moved forward with. But in addition to that, they organize events, cleanup events especially, in the park to help the Parks Department in the effort to keep the park really pristine. And so Stacy has been very active herself in the park, and I think she'll be a big plus for the advisory committee. And maybe we let Stacy, Ms.
Certainly. Thank
Vigno, introduce herself, and then you can ask questions.
Well, first of all, hello. So I first started in Nashua about 10 years ago. I was an EMT on Rockingham Ambulance, so I kind of got to know the city, kind of fell in love. And when it was time for me to settle down, me and my husband chose Nashua. The place that we chose didn't have a lot of land, but that was okay with us because we were close to the park. We had a son and we had a dog, and we knew that we'd be okay. Since then, we visit the park all the time. We're constantly in the park doing things with our family. I've brought my nieces and nephews down there. We play in the soccer fields. We play in the baseball fields. We really fell in love with the place, and I just really want to help keep it the way it is for future generations.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions? None. Well, I,
was
for one,
easy.
I'm really happy. I've been part of that Mine Falls Park for a long time, and it's great to know that people who sit on that committee have a real genuine concern and love for that park. It's one of the greatest assets the city was able to pick up back in the 70s. So I think that's really super. And if we don't have any more questions, we will take your nomination up shortly. Oh, Miss Alderman Lopez.
Just to make sure, your experience in the gun range won't be applied at Mines Falls, right?
No. I'm an administrator there. I do scheduling and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Still, it shows you're good under pressure, so that'll be helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you. Anyone else? Thank you, Ms. Vigno.
Thank you.
So,
So, Madam Chair, that's all we have for tonight. And I just had one question. Do you intend to vote on them now at the end of the nominations or after all the ordinances?
nope, right after
Okay.
communications, we'll
All right,
do
so they
that.
should wait around.
So, Mr. McGinnis is not here, so
He's not.
he's on a hold.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You want to leave Jim? Yeah. Okay, so now I'd like a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Yeah,
I move to recommend the confirmation of the following appointments by the mayor. To the Board of Assessors, Daniel C. Hansberry for an indefinite term at the pleasure of the mayor. To the Downtown Improvement Committee, Michael Buckley and Jill Gage for terms to expire January 31st, 2021. And to the Hunt Memorial Board of Trustees, Tim Cummings for a term to expire January 31st, 2023. And to the Mine Falls Park Advisory Committee, Stacy Vigna for a term to expire January 31st, 2021. That's my motion.
Do we have any discussion? Alderman McCarthy.
Yeah, I just want to comment on how glad I am to see Mr. Hansberry returning to city service, and also how glad I am to see Mr. Buckley and Ms. Gage on the Downtown Improvements Committee. I've known both of them for a long time. They're great advocates for downtown, and they will be a great addition to that committee.
Thank you. Anyone else? Alderman Wilshire.
I'd also like to thank Stacy Vigna for her passion for Mine Falls and appreciate that you've come forward to serve on that committee. Thank you very much.
Alderman Lopez.
I was just going to express a similar sentiment that having served in the public and being successful as a business owner, we're very grateful to have you here volunteering for the city, but we're also grateful for people who are taking their first steps and just trying to get involved in something that they love.
Yes, I too. I think it's wonderful when we have enthusiastic people who have a desire to make our city a better place to live for everyone. So I thank you. So you heard the motion. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Okay, motion is carried. Thank you. You'll be notified as to when to come in for swearing in. Thank you. Okay. So, clerk, do we have any communications?
None,
Applications to license hawkers, peddlers, vendors license?
none,
Okay, unfinished business?
none,
New business resolutions?
none.
New business ordinance?
Ordinance 18002, amending the order of business of the Board of Aldermen.
Madam Chair, I think you may have wanted to make a motion to hold the other
Oh, do we? Okay.
appointments.
Oh,
That's right.
all right, thank you. Thank you.
I'll make that motion.
Okay.
I will make a motion to hold the appointments of William Dubois for the Hunt Memorial Board of Trustees and Sean McGinnis as the alternate for the Planning Board. That's my motion, is to hold those nominations.
Any comments? Alderman Lopez.
I just think it's important to let people come and present themselves and talk about what they're interested in. And so I agree with Alderman Wilshire's motion.
Okay. Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carried. And we'll let them know about the next personnel meeting. Thank you. So you're recommending final passage? I didn't write it down.
It's ordinance 18002, amending the order of business for the Board of Aldermen. I would move to recommend final passage of ordinance 18002.
Okay, fine. Do you all have that?
Yep.
Okay. Discussion. Alderman McCarthy.
Yeah, I thought I'd just very briefly run through what the changes actually are in the agenda and
Thank
why they
you.
were done. We have as those of you who have been here know, with telephone participation, we've streamlined some of the motions. So one of the things I wanted to do was just put that into our normal order of business since it saves time. There's also a problem that former Alderman Clemens had pointed out to me, which is fixed by this. So the first 6 items on the agenda are unchanged. The first thing that changes is the recognition, and that was just it doesn't say or employees, and it doesn't allow for plurals of citizens or organizations. So we fixed that. The 8th one is the reading of the minutes of previous meetings. And it just is our standard language to say if there's no objections, we'll just accept and place on file. The biggest change is in communications, where it divides up into 3 sections. One of the issues that we've had, and this was what Alderman Clemens had pointed out to me, was if there are contracts and other things that come back to the board where we vote on very large appropriations as part of communications, and that was always done prior to the public comment period. So what is done in here is to divide it up into the accept and place on file procedural communications, followed by the public comment period, followed by communications that anticipate an approval and allow comment on those during the public comment period. So the public comment period then at the beginning becomes related to ordinances, resolutions, and communications requiring a non-procedural action that we anticipate final action will be taken on at that meeting, which is what we've always really intended it to be, is stuff we need to hear about before we vote. And anything else is at the second public comment period. Section 10 on petitions, same thing, allows just referral to a committee without a procedural motion. Likewise for reports of committees, and I struck the section on written reports from liaisons because we haven't had any in years, and that's actually included in the communications section up above, so they would just be received as communications. The probably the most substantive change is on the approval of the mayor's appointments to allow them. Sometimes we actually have votes that are divided. Most of the time they come back, as these will, with a unanimous recommendation from the committee and nobody makes an objection at the board. So what it allows for is if they come back with a unanimous recommendation and there's no objections from the board, we'll just declare them approved and swear the people in, which if you've seen some of the meetings where we have a lot of appointments, there's an awful lot of voting that takes place that results in unanimous votes at the end. And those are the changes in 01802.
Okay. Any other, Alderwoman Kelly?
Thank you, President McCarthy. I was wondering if you could talk about 9A. I think you skipped over that.
About what?
About 9A.
Yeah, 9A is the public comment period. And it basically has always been, the wording has always been a little awkward with the way it was included, because it didn't allow the communications, but it did allow any ordinances or resolutions, including those that were just in for first reading. So basically what it does now is it allows you to comment on ordinances or resolutions that will be acted upon that evening, i.e. passed or rejected, and communications that anticipate us approving a contract or spending money, and then moves all of the other comment to the final period, so that if something's just given first reading, that does not need to be commented on at the first public comment period. And in fact, it's probably better off at the end after it's been introduced.
So just forgive me if I'm not understanding. Is that not to exceed 15 minutes? Is that just for the acceptance or for the actual public comment section?
Since its inception, each of the public comment periods has been limited to 15 minutes by the ordinance on the agenda. Since its inception, I have never seen us cut the public comment period off at 15 minutes.
Right, but I was just, oh yeah. That's
So I didn't touch the language there on the time duration.
Okay, that was actually there. Thank you.
Anyone else? Alderman Lopez.
I just wanted to comment with respect to the written reports by liaisons. I think the intent was really to just make sure that the aldermen were attending the committees that they're supposed to be liaisons to, and ensuring that if an issue came up, they were doing their due diligence. So I would just remind everybody that we should be attending not only our own aldermanic committees, but be liaisons to other committees and make sure that we're passing on pertinent information. I agree that it's not being utilized, and so that it is just basically an elephant in the room on the agenda. But I think the intent for it was pretty straightforward and well-intentioned, so I just wanted to comment on that. And then with regards to the public comment, is this basically just and I guess I'm asking through the chair to Alderman McCarthy, is this basically intended to avoid lengthy presentations of opinion before the board has an opportunity to really explore an issue?
No, it's just to clarify what the first public comment period is used for. And I mean, that's typically what we see. We occasionally get comments on ordinances that are just being read. I'll typically encourage people to either comment on the end or go to the committee meeting where you can give input to the committee that will be studying it. So I don't think it's a tremendously big change. I think it's just clarifying what was intended in the way the public comment period was structured.
Alderman Lopez.
I'm conscious of whenever we have a issue where specific people in the city have done more research and are more prepared or are particularly passionate about an issue, the public comment period at the beginning, some people take much, much, much longer than others, which can make it difficult for people who wanted to make a comment or a statement, either supporting or negative, or a more simplified response, because people who may be looking at something that is just getting its first reading wanted to make sure that they got ahead of the issue and presented it to the board. So that was my interpretation, is you're having the people who have a particular issue that may not be acted upon that evening, more clearly move to the end of the meeting, not the beginning.
True.
Alderwoman Kelly, did you have a question?
I had similar questions around the written reports from liaisons. I know you've been on the board for a very long time, and I would just wonder how it's worked in the past that's been, fruitful. Because I do have the same concerns about if we don't have these reports, how do we
Certainly.
make sure that people are...
And in the discussions we've had of it, the liaisons will tell you, I'm not writing a written report of a meeting that produced minutes. In many cases, the minutes are verbatim. You can read exactly what was stated. The purpose of the liaisons is not to replace reading the minutes. It's twofold. It's to bring issues to us where there is a concern that is directly in the purview of the Board of Aldermen, or for us to bring a concern that is the board's concern to the committee. And I think people do that.
Okay.
It's just, and sometimes, particularly for like the liaisons to the Board of Ed, the Fire Commission, the Police Commission, that gives them a person to approach to get legislation introduced that has to come to the board. So I'm not sure I see a lot of purpose to additional written reports. It's Alderman Lopez is correct. People need to be participating in the boards that they are liaisons to, but I don't think that the written reports were necessarily adding anything to have them in the agenda when we weren't getting any anyway. If someone feels it's important to send a report, by all means send it, but we'll just accept it under communications.
Alderman Lopez.
So that last part I think was particularly reassuring, because I have seen scenarios where a committee was not necessarily interested in detailing exactly who made what claim or what happened, or information that I as an alderman would have thought particularly important to be on public record. And ultimately it is rendered down to the clerk of that committee or secretary to decide what is going to be put in public. And we have had some issues in the past where, some minutes weren't taken or were completely missing from committees. So there is some value in the aldermanic liaison being able to communicate important information to the board if they feel that information is not being communicated otherwise. But I think if they want to submit a written communication to the board, they could certainly do that, or even use their aldermanic comments. And I think maybe one of the intents to preserve that ability to document and then pass information on, we could probably do that just by maintaining a better relationship with the committees we're working with.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. The motion on the floor is for final passage of 0-18002. All those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Alderman Wilshire is very
That's fast.
excited.
Alderman Wilsh.
Thank you. Ordinance 18003 regarding suspension of the Board of Aldermen rules. I would make a motion to recommend final passage.
Okay. Discussion. Alderman McCarthy.
Yeah.
Thank
this
you.
one looks like we're losing something, but I don't believe that we actually are. The ordinances have, for the entire time I've been on there, had this provision that it required a 2/3 vote of the Board of Aldermen to suspend the rules. I've had conversations with at least 3 different corporation councils and our deputy corporation counsel, none of whom believe that section is actually enforceable. And the theory, and there's case law to support it, is the board, and the board is entitled to do certain things by statute. The board cannot preclude the members of a future board of availing themselves of the powers they have under the statute. So if one board passes something that says you can't suspend the rules without a supermajority vote, that is taking rights away from a simple majority of the next board and is held to be, outside of that. And if you read the case law on suspension of the rules and on rules in specific, New Hampshire holds that for a board to fail to adhere to its own rules does not make any reversible error, as in you can't invalidate the meeting, what the board did, simply because it didn't follow its rules. As long as it followed the laws and the charter, it is taken that they implicitly suspended their own rules, which they have control over. So I just, were the situation to arise, I would rule that a majority had suspended the rules, because I believe that's what's legally correct. And I think the ordinance should reflect what we believe to be the law.
Thank you. Alderman Lopez.
I think situations with the suspension of rules might have been referred to in a previous meeting as the Susie maneuver. And I just wanted to remind everybody of that, honestly. But I also think that reducing this to just a simple majority kind of makes sense, because otherwise it's been my experience, people are kind of like checking attendance and trying to see if they can pull off a 2/3 majority when legitimately 2/3 of the board may not be there, just be 1 or 2 essential aldermen weren't. So I think a simple majority makes it a little bit more straightforward, and it allows for more transparent decision-making rather than just gamesmanship.
Anyone else? Okay. We have a motion on the floor for final passage of 0-18-003. Those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. Motion carried.
We have Ordinance 18004 regarding acceptance of procedural motions without objection. I would move to recommend final passage.
Okay. Discussion, Alderman McCarthy.
Yeah, this one's the simplest of the bunch, and it just allows the chair of the board or committee to ask for permission to do a procedural thing, so that rather than at a committee, when a communication shows up on our desk, to have a motion to suspend the rules and then a motion to place the communication on file, the chair can simply say, if there are no objections, the communication will be accepted and placed on file.
Basic. Alderman Lopez.
I think this is going to save a lot of taxpayer money on documentation and recording.
Anyone else? Okay, motion on the table for final approval of 0-18-004. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Okay. Do we have any discussion? None. No public comment?
None.
Remarks by the alderman? Well, I think you will. No, none? Okay, no non-public? Okay, motion. Alderman Wiltshire.
I'll move to adjourn.
Alderman Wilshire. Motion to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. 8 p.m.